Welcome to Inviting Oneness, a podcast where we explore true personal stories from friends and members of EquaSion. Stories where the illusion of separateness gave way to the deeper truth of our shared humanity. Oneness isn't an idea, it's an experience. And today we continue listening for it, one story at a time. Our guest today is Tamie Sullivan. Tamie is a community developer, an innovative social entrepreneur with more than 30 years of nonprofit and small business experience. More recently, she has turned her attention to real estate development by founding Neighborhood Builds LLC to scale innovative housing solutions using factory-built for urban infill construction. Tamie was also a board member at EquaSion for over a decade before recently stepping off. Here's Tamie.
A story about oneness would be relevant to the spirit of the Oneness podcast and EquaSion as an organization. The very first time I had the opportunity and took the time to do the MLK walk, and it was with my colleagues and friends of EquaSion. And I hadn't actually done it, even though have been so many things that I've done around it and the work I've done. And it was right after George Floyd. And I think the timing was right. There was a spirit in the air that brought people together with a connectedness that was so unique. And even though I didn't have a lot to compare it to, I was really lifted up by that event. And I've been back, not every year, but been back to do the walk. And I think people just need to be invited. You know, it was very much an outreach invitation. And I said, yeah, you know what? I'm going to do that this year. I'm going to join you. So, and I was so glad I did.
Yeah, the invitation piece is so important in this kind of work. Do you remember who invited you and what the invitation was like?
I was on the board of EquaSion at the time and had been involved in the iterations of dialogue and interfaith work, racial justice for years. And it was very much that we wanted to have a presence as a board. There was so much happening in the community. And it was, one of the board members who said, "Are you coming?" And I said, yes. So that was it.
Little positive peer pressure. I
Yeah,
like that. Cool.
absolutely.
Do you remember any specific moments of the walk?
I would say seeing so many people that I knew that I've worked with in the community, not that that was surprising, but it just felt like, oh yeah, of course you're here and I'm here. And we do all of these important things to try to make a difference together. And we're here in the same spirit. So I would say seeing friends and colleagues and just the energy.
Yeah, sometimes these kinds of events can feel almost celebratory. Like, look at all these relationships I have. Look at all these things that we built together. And in other moments, they feel heavy and like the weight of the world is coming down on us. I wonder, how did it feel for you in that first walk that you participated in?
Well, I had really made an effort to reach out to friends. My Black and brown friends at the time had a friend also, she's still my friend, who's an African American woman on CPD. And, as all of that was happening, and I think it's so relevant this week because we're having the opportunity to do the podcast the week of MLK Day, right? I would say realizing the other perspectives of the people there, knowing how my Black friend who's on the Cincinnati Police Department as a lieutenant felt taking a knee, times that things were really getting heavy. Like you said, it's heavy. So it's important to celebrate the progress. But of course, you always are a bit weighed down by, okay, well, this is real, where we still need to go.
As you think about this one moment that you've brought up, how has that moment shifted your trajectory on how you see the world or how you're choosing to use your time? on what it means for you to be a citizen in Cincinnati?
That is a wonderful question because for me, I recently left the board of EquaSion, and not because I don't believe in what they're doing and the Festival and Faiths and all the good work, but for me, I am taking what I do, which I've done for a long time. Like I served as the board chair for Lighthouse Youth and Family Services, and during my time there, the board became more diverse, and the person who replaced me as chair was an African American woman, and that was the first time that had happened for that particular board. So I try to take my values into action and make sure that I'm working with diverse people, and whatever work I'm doing, that all perspectives are very much part of the equation, to use the word a little differently.
Yeah, that's great. So one of the key features of Equation is that we're working with people from different faith traditions. And so, would you be willing to make the connection between your own faith and the commitments that you're living into through Lighthouse and Equation and the Walk and all this stuff? What does that have to do with your faith exactly?
Well, I'm a Christian, and I actually, in my early time working with folks in this organization, it was the interfaith dialogue when it was had been initially Muslims and Jews as a result of things happening in the world, which is still relevant today. But Christians were brought in, and my husband and I were brought in that first wave of Christians coming to the table. And of course, it's much broader now. However, I believe that the basic tenets of so many religions are the same. You may follow a particular prophet, which, Jesus is certainly a very powerful voice in Christianity, but that doesn't make it that different. For example, I also see a faith base to my yoga. And when you're talking about oneness, I like to think about also ordinary, everyday oneness. And when we chant Om at the end of a class, feel very connected to my yoga community. And while sometimes experiences of oneness can be something stands out or very extraordinary, the angel choirs or something in Christianity, but it, can also be listening to the chants of monks. And so that's the faith connection that I feel so deeply.
So you're transitioning off of the Equation board now. As you think about how much time and effort you've given to Equation, is there one kind of moment or memory that still sticks with you that you'll carry with you into the future?
I would say something at the Festival of Faiths, because I frankly had been exposed to many religions and faiths, but the six were new to me. And they have a huge presence at the Festival of Faiths. And so I was learning. I was open eyed to a different group and kind of excited about that. Yeah.
And now Equation is entering into a new era with a new executive director and new board members, and there's all this exciting stuff happening. And I wonder if you could issue for people who are just hearing about Equation for the first time, what would be the invitation that you have for them to get involved with what Equation is going to do as we move forward?
I would say to maybe think about stepping outside your comfort zone and trying to find a connection. There are so many offerings that it could be as simple as going to a new faith community for service. And I think that's, in fact, a beautiful place to start. If you are a person of faith, and you are just curious about world religions, because the breadth of what we have in Cincinnati is incredible. I think that would be my invitation, would be to look at those opportunities and think about, it's very simple and private, and you can go in and, and leave, whatever works for you, but I do think that's a cool opportunity.
There's just so much division in our world right now, right? There's so much polarization, partisanship, separation. And I think one of the core beliefs of EquaSion is that actually people of faith who are coming together around a shared purpose and shared values can transcend those religious differences to offer a larger sense of oneness. And it's a little funny for me because traditionally religion is often depicted as a force of separation. And what we're trying to do is kind of redefine it a bit as a force for oneness and community.
Well, I completely agree with what you said. I think EquaSion can definitely help break down barriers because it's very much us and them world right now, and it's very challenging. And I think about the times in our country before I was born and since I've been born, like after World War II and, after 9/11 and in the early days of the pandemic, when we found a way to, have something that we all believed in.
Yeah.
And there are at the core of so many faiths and religions are really solid values that have nothing to do with what's going on right now.
Yeah, I love that. It's about shifting our perspective to deeper time and deeper values in the face of stuff that feels so unsettling. Yeah. Well, thanks so much for your time, Tamie. I appreciate it. And we really appreciate all the energy and effort you've given to EquaSion over the years, as well as to our city in general. So thanks so much. Thanks for joining us on Inviting Oneness, where we share real stories of connection that dissolve the illusion of separation and reveal our common humanity. To learn more about our work at EquaSion or to share your own story of oneness, visit us at equasion.org. Until next time, may we keep inviting oneness within ourselves and with one another.